Okay, good evening. I don't have a gavel. Good evening. It is the Mount Anthony Union High School Board of Directors meeting for Wednesday, September 18th. We're starting a little bit late, my apologies. I'm going to have everybody introduce themselves. Tonight's agenda has been changed a little bit, and even now it's going to be changed a little bit. So the first item is public comment. Katie has already presented to us. I had a senior moment and thought it was the SU board. We're all working together, so we're going to pass on that for now. We have the finance action items here, which are the treasurer's report. Tim is going, and maybe with the help of Rick, will tell us about the finance meetings we need going forward for the school year. We have a new item on the agenda to accept some scholarship money, which Sue and Rick can explain. We have a personnel request from Tim Brown, and added to that is the job description for the athletic trainer that was created, the job that was created in 2007. The consent agenda, reports, other, and an executive session for legal matter and the ESP contract. And then we will come out of executive session and hopefully make a motion on matters that we heard inside with the ESP contract, not the legal matter. So, so the first item on the agenda is public comments. Lori? These go with the agenda. Ken?
I'm sorry, what was that request?
Excuse me?
Were you making that request to me?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. These are add-ons to the agenda that I'm passing down.
I just had a question, and I was looking at the agenda, and I noticed that there's a document attached, and it's a brochure for MAUMS and MAUHS.
Sure.
And I was just wondering if, I've never seen that document before, and I was wondering if somebody could elaborate as to what that document is used for, what that brochure is used for.
I actually thought
I read
that,
through it, but I'm just trying to,
so I actually thought this was going to come up under a section of the board meeting. So did you want to do that on superintendent's report, or did you want to, the brochure for the high school? Was Katie working on
in
that?
middle school.
No, that's
you.
Sure, it's just an FYI that brochure is being worked on, and it's for the board to see that we are creating some brochures for all of the schools
For the district.
that provide information for the public.
Okay, so the brochure is used to profile information about the schools? And
It-
what
it's
is
a-
the target audience, if I may ask?
It's a work, and I mean, it's not a finished product yet. Donna, who's the
It's
audience?
for the information of the board and for the community.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other,
Yes. Public comment.
okay?
I had an awful lot of the public speak to me. They didn't think it was a good idea that we hired a superintendent without an educational background.
Okay. I can go under, I can review that under, I'm still not used to this quote new format, but under reports, there should be an SVSU report, and we can discuss it under there. Fran, any one of the SU board members can give an update, and I can give an update on the search process. I did actually have Mary Lee send
Yep.
all board members of all 36 board members the letter that went out on behalf of, at the request of the SVSU board, so that all, however many board members we have, 36, were aware of the letter. So
Got it.
we can talk about that under the SVSU report, which is not on here.
That's what I thought.
Okay. Any other, Lori?
I just have a quick question. I wasn't sure whether we could address that issue here at the MAU board,
Okay.
and so I didn't comment on it. So if you do have that discussion, would we be allowed to comment at that time?
So under the SU, which I'll put under reports, the SVSU report, it will be pretty, the board members can comment who are SU members, and you can certainly give your comment at that time on that particular topic. Sarah?
Thank you.
Okay, and you can. So the action items that we have under,
May I just say something
Sure.
about the Katie presentation? In the interest of time, Katie Schoenbeck is very interested in presenting about the math programs that she is doing, but feels that she has notified you of the changes she was going to make this year at another meeting, and would like to come at a later date to let you know how those new classes are going, because she's doing some very innovative things, doing year-long math classes and an integrated math science course, as well as some new
Thank you.
textbooks that she is using for her coursework, and she would like to come at a later date because it may have budget implications as far as the scheduling and staffing and possible materials that they would need to run full-year courses. So she asks your permission to come at a later date to present some of that to you.
great, I'm sure this board will be very receptive to hear about year-long math classes.
Just,
Tim?
if you could ask her to explain to us what the Common Core requirements are going to be and how they differ from what we're doing now.
She would love to do that. As a matter of fact,
not now. When she comes, that would be
well,
great.
she did go to a special training at the end of last year, I think it was in June, just for that purpose, and to be able to train teachers here on the differences and how to implement the Common Core.
Very good, thank you.
Okay?
Well, actually, this board will probably be informed multiple times about that, as most of the boards should be, as we proceed to FY15. So, the treasurer's report, was it posted? Did anybody notice? It was? Thank you,
Yes.
Richard. So can we accept the treasurer's report of August, please?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? I believe there's a budget stat report. See, this is why it drives me crazy. So if anybody has any questions of the FYI under, oh, did I call the question? No. All in favor? I think I haven't been at this for a while. Right?
We do it anyway.
Rick is here if you have questions on the budget stat report. And then I'm going to ask Tim, with the help of Rick, to talk about the overview of the finance meetings that'll be needed for this school year.
Just a very brief thing. I talked to Rick very briefly about this, but we have two, well, always have more than just two, but two major concerns. One is what impact on the budget will the Common Core have? And number two, what impact the healthcare program that is being established in the district in the state will have on our budget. So those are the two major concerns that we will be dealing with as we work with the budget, and it's Rick's responsibility to be able to give us the information that we need to make intelligent decisions.
I'm going to add to that, maybe Ken can help a little bit. You may have read in the paper in a couple different articles that the select board is very interested in what the schools are doing and what they're budgeting as we go forward, so that everybody knows of any big projects that may be coming. And we haven't picked a date, but I was going to mention to you that they were going to meet with the chair of the finance committees of SU, MAU, BSD, and with Rick when the time is, when we've had a little time to take a look at what may be needed. And I think, was that date late October that they were looking at? Is that too soon, Mr. Pembroke?
It depends on the specificity that they're looking for. We can give them what the current market looks like, but most of the state statistics don't start to come out till middle, late December as far as impacts on tax rate, which is, I'm assuming, what their ultimate desire is.
Yes.
Well, that's just it. I mean, You know, the tax rate is what I'm sure they're concerned about, and the tax rate is something that we won't know until a later date. Rumors are that there'll be a substantial increase in the base tax rate that the state will charge. Now, whether that in fact is true or not, we don't know. But I think that the Select Board should be well aware that we are governed in many of the decisions and the financial decisions we make by the decisions that are made by the legislature.
So Rick, in a week from tonight, when the SU board meets and reviews some of the VHI contracts, the agreements that you're looking for the board to assign, are we going to hear any more specificity about rates and cost to the district at that time?
No.
No?
No. It's just, there's gonna be, there needs to be a discussion about VHI and our access to health plans through VHI going forward in conjunction with normal course of business, as well as in conjunction with an upcoming negotiations that you have. And I think Tim touched on it. It's a very fluid market right now. They're not projecting to have projected insurance rates until probably the 1st of November. But there's still a lot of unknowns around the exchange and the grandfathered plans that we have through VHI and the continuance of those plans as well as VHI in and of itself. But that's largely the discussion that's going to take place next week.
So I have a bit of a basic question. So the plan that has been advertised and all of the media and upstate discussion about the MVP and the Catamount plan and the Platinum Gold, you know, all the different levels, and that they all offer the same things at different levels. Will the insurance that is in place for our employees in January be the same as it is now? Or do we get grandfathered in? I mean, do we know those kind of details?
Yeah, we currently have a grandfather plan, which to compare to the exchange is what's called Platinum Plus. It's richer.
It's the high end.
It's richer than the most richest plan within the exchange.
But we only have that for a year, right?
Well, depending on how you read the legislation and who you talk to, some would argue that we only have it until June 1, 2014. Some would argue we have it until
January.
June 1, 2018. And some would argue some districts are going to go out earlier than others, which is another complicated because of the size of the districts.
So will we know more at the SVSU, or will we know more on October 1st? Or when?
We will know more every day. How much more, I can't guarantee you. But information is flowing in. I was at 2 meetings last week, one on Tuesday, one on Friday, and heard significantly different stuff at the one on Friday that I heard on Tuesday. So it is a very fluid topic.
Well, and the governor was on last night talking about it, so.
Well,
Ken?
that's another curveball where he's talking about a single-payer universal system that's going to be paid through the payroll tax.
Right.
Which will do away with the exchange altogether. So then there's the complicator of, do you jump into the exchange sooner than you have to, or do you try to avoid the exchange altogether to only make one change once? So it's very fluid.
Well, there are those navigators. Do we have somebody that we're working, does the district or you have someone that we're working with specifically?
Well, VHI is largely serving that role. They've also contracted with Gallagher Associates out of Chicago, which is a national health insurance consulting firm that is available to us.
Thank you. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but it is on a lot of people's minds right now, and I think, so is it fair to say for the teachers that there is no there's absolutely no change before June 30th, 2014.
Yeah, that's actually a good, I didn't think of it, but you just, every employee, let me rephrase, every employee that ever received a paycheck from us over the last 18 months is going to receive a notice very shortly that is going to be extremely confusing. And the first question is going to be, why are you changing my insurance? And that's not what's happening. We are required by law to issue this notice to say that the exchange exists, but our insurance plans are in place through June 30th, 2013. 14.
And I don't think we can say that enough, because I think people will be worried, people will be concerned. So I think it's probably a good thing to say at all the board meetings so that it gets repeated. Ken?
On October 7th, the VSBA is coming down for information training, and that's going to be the main focus on how the new health exchange is going to be affecting education, teaching and stuff. And they're going to, Laura Souls is coming down, is Nicole Mesa coming down.
So Nicole,
And
so
interviewer.
Laura is from VHI,
Right.
and Nicole is from the VSB.
Legal counsel.
Right.
Right, and they're both going to be there to answer questions, give a presentation on the health insurance program as it pertains to school districts. It's October 7th, 5 o'clock at the CDC. You can go online, vtvsba.org, and register.
Thank you, Ken. So now moving on to is there anything else on finance for the year? So moving on to the scholarship donation, Sue or Rick?
Yep. We have a community member who would like to establish a scholarship titled the Daniel Tange Memorial Scholarship for a graduating senior, and she'd like to contribute $12,157.50. And all that money goes through central office, and then each year at graduation, they cut a check, is how we typically do this. So I think tonight, we need to know that the board would accept the gift and the conditions of the gift, that it's going to be used as a scholarship.
Tim?
How is that money handled? Who, is it invested, or what happens to it? In a separate
The
number
treasurer,
account?
yeah, the treasurer will invest it in a separate account. It has to keep it separate because of the gift money.
Okay, and is there a principal limit that it has to maintain on that? So,
I mean, it's just going to, as it draws down, it's going to earn less and less interest every year.
right, but is there a commitment by them, or do they look forward to having so much money go into a scholarship each year?
$500 each year.
$500 each year from $12,000 isn't going to take long.
They don't plan on it sticking around
20 years.
forever.
Very good.
Something years. That's right. That's a long time.
Yeah, 25.
It's a quarter of a century.
Yeah, it's a long time.
So can somebody please make a motion to accept the gift
So move.
And its conditions.
and its conditions?
Yes, so move.
So that's Leon and Tim Holbrook. Any questions? All in favor? It's unanimous. And I guess, should somebody thank them?
Yeah, I'll email, I just said I'll.
Okay. Personnel, Tim Brown, you're up.
We had I guess the first question on the agenda is the approval of the 7th grade assistant boys soccer. You want me to address that first?
Yes, please.
In the past, quite a few years, we've had anywhere from 12 to 18 boys show up for 7th grade boys soccer, and this year we were pleasantly greeted by 30 boys. And we have a general policy that with any kind of a contact sport, we would like to have a ratio of 1 coach per 20 kids. And in talking with Mike Malloy, the head coach of the boys soccer program, and Zeb Miner, who is the 7th grade boys soccer coach, rather than split the teams in 2 and request a second 7th grade boys soccer coach, he would like, his recommendation would be to have an assistant coach that would help him during practices. And so when he splits the squad for away games, this other coach can stay behind to practice with the other team. It would actually be a savings over a head coach. So I'm here to request Kelly Brooks, who has been a volunteer assistant with the boys soccer program for many years, and he's now a paraprofessional here at the middle school. Is a really good fit. He walks right out the door after school and coaches the kids. So I'd like to recommend him to be the 7th grade boys soccer assistant coach.
So that,
Move to
we don't
accept.
actually need a motion for the person, just the position, because
Right.
the person is on the agenda. So
Right.
is there,
I move that we accept.
that would be Nelson and then Leon? Do you have a
Is this
question, Nelson?
Yeah, is this a paid position or volunteer?
Yes.
Paid?
Paid.
Yeah, paid position.
Just so, because we talked volunteer, I want to make sure.
And just so you know, I'll go a little further. In the past, we've had a 7th grade field hockey team and an 8th grade field hockey team. This year, we did not have enough for both teams, so there's just one team and one coach. So we consolidated that team. So when we have large numbers, we go to the board asking for a second team, and when we're smaller, we consolidate.
Thank you. So there's a motion and a second on the floor. Is there more discussion? All in favor of the, is it an assistant coach? An additional coach, a middle school coach? It's unanimous.
The assistant coach
Assistant
for
coach.
soccer
At the middle school.
at the middle school. That's right.
It's unanimous, Richard. Now, I'm going to introduce the next piece just briefly, and then I'll turn it over to Tim. The trainer job description, which I believe I emailed you, but it's also in front of you, was created in 2007 when there was a need for this athletic trainer position. This position does what's in here, and I believe more, and Tim can address that. You also received the athletic training salary, and really what we're going to focus on today is changing, if the board so agrees, the range, and then I'm going to let Tim address that piece. So, Tim,
You want me to address?
the range, or why, what
Yeah,
you think the
presently,
range should be.
When the job description was put together, and Sean already mentioned in 2007, we had to draw up a job description. It was a brand-new position to the school, so I believe the salary the range was $30,000 to $45,000. And I believe he was hired, I think at $40,000. And just with the 2% increases, whatever has been given to, off-grid staff, this year, a contract could not be drawn up because it would have exceeded.
Well, actually,
$45,000.
but we're not really focusing on the personnel piece. We just want to focus on why you think the range should be different, not the person, but why the supporting documentation might say that the range should go from 30 to 50 or 52. That's what the board is, if the board wants to and chooses to, it can change. This is an MAU job description because no one else has this job. It was, this particular position. So what we want to do is focus on why the range should be changed, not why the person might or might not fall into that.
Well, I guess the easiest thing to say would be, I believe the range should change because the range was drawn up 6 years ago.
Okay, that would be a simple.
And then I also reached out, I reached out to all the athletic directors in the state to have them send me back numbers of what their full-time athletic trainer gets and how many years of service. And the very first one I got was from Denise Aloza at South Burlington, who's probably been the longest standing athletic director in the state. She's also president of the national, of the Vermont chapter of the National Athletic Trainers Association. And she sent me this survey that was conducted by the NATA Marketing Research, which I have handed out. And it has all the nationwide districts, what the average salary is for certified athletic trainers. And District 1, which is New England, the average salary is $51,886. That's the base salary for the starting training.
You say New England, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
District
Can you-
1 is New England.
Yeah, but tell me what states are involved with that?
That would be Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Vermont, Rhode Island,
Maine?
Maine.
And I know this isn't necessarily right on topic, but, over the years, there's been discussion over the need of this position, and we've had I've heard lots of positive stories of a coach, of this athletic trainer being at a game when someone was hurt or when someone had a concussion. And there is actually legislation that was passed last year to support athletic trainers being at contact sport games. I don't remember the number or if it was last year or the year before, but would you like to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, it's the new legislation that was passed has not only recommended that a trainer be at contact sports, but it's going to be mandated in 2015 that they be at all collision sports, which would encompass football, boys lacrosse, wrestling, ice
Really?
hockey, which we don't have. And so the contact sports would be anything but probably golf, and tennis, and cross country. So we already have a trainer that attends all of these home events. The good news is that by having it mandated, we can be assured that when our students go to somebody else's school,
They'll be there.
There'll be somebody there to protect our kids. So right now, our trainer is at all of our home events.
Leon?
So I just wanted to know, all the schools in Vermont don't have athletic trainers right now. Is that correct?
Correct.
And what are they doing? I mean, I know that there is some recommendation to say if you got one, that you ask those questions, because we all do that. But when we go to other places, and I know around the state, they just say they don't have one. And they may not even have an EMT, there, or ambulance there. I don't know how they get away with these things and how the state is going to force somebody in several years from now to have somebody on hand at the schools. I don't know how that's going to happen.
Well, presently, all schools with football and hockey are required to have at the minimum an EMT at games. And what they've done with this new legislation is they're now saying it's very concession specific, where they have to have a minimum of 5 years of training with concussion. So that's really going to make it difficult for some schools to get coverage. The good news for some schools is, some of the smaller schools don't have football, or don't have ice hockey, don't have some of these collision sports. But you're right, it is going to be difficult. We're ahead of the game.
So does our athletic trainer, I remember early on when we talked about this, that if there were multiple games going on, he stayed here, or he had one of his students from MCLA. Has he ever gone with a team somewhere?
Yes, if we don't have a home game, and there's a away football game or some other collision sport, he has gone to away games, but we do not send him with the football team if we have a home soccer game, for example.
Okay. So he's very flexible in whatever the schedule is.
Yeah.
Fran?
Do we have to still have the Bennington Rescue Squad here also, even though we have do we ever?
We did.
We used to, I remember that.
We used to, when we didn't have a trainer, yeah.
But we don't now?
No.
Okay, and is that because they are paid now, or?
Well, I think what's happened is that, Jeff is first call, and they're a phone call away. If we have something very serious, we call and they're there. I think it was a matter of them, when we had nobody, they were the first call responders. And, I think there was probably games where they would normally go out on the field to respond, and they didn't need to anymore, so they probably felt their services would be better somewhere else, or not being at games.
The other technical piece, and then I'll take Ed's question, it says reports to the principal. Can we write principal or designee, or does it have to be principal?
It could be either one.
So it needs to maybe be a licensed administrator, is that, I mean, does it matter? I mean, if we're looking at it, we might as well look at it, so. He reports to you.
Right,
You're
and
the
why would you
athletic
want him to
director.
report anywhere else?
Well, I'm just saying, it says to the principal. That's,
Or designate to me.
right.
I mean, that's the same with superintendent, to the principal or designate.
So can we, if we make a motion, can we add that to the change in the range?
In terms of designee,
Principal or
or
designate?
designee?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Ed?
On this job description, the work here says per contract, what are the hours that are normally put in the duties when you're not having an athletic event?
He comes in at 1:15 every day of school, and in the preseason, because we start August 12th with teams. And when they were in the morning, he came in the morning. And he works through the evening until the last game is played or the last practice.
Okay.
And he works a certain number of days. It's more than the school year. I mean, that's his contracted year.
If they're starting in
And
Tim?
vacations.
Is there any advantage in putting a cap on that salary? I mean, we don't put caps on the other salaries. But why have a cap?
Well, it's really in the job description. I mean,
I
it's
realize
not,
that, but that's what we're changing, right?
we're changing the cap. Well, it's the board's pleasure, but the idea is to change the range of the job description.
Right, well, I'm saying that if we just eliminate the cap, we've done that.
Well, why would you want to do that?
Well, why would you want it?
Don't they have one in the superintendent's
Yeah, they do.
Well,
contract and
that's-
everything?
That's the format of the job description.
That's right.
I can't really argue any other reason to say that it's the format.
If you would, but I just don't think that it doesn't seem to make a lot of logical sense.
So you're asking for 50, Tim? Does anybody feel that if it gets close to 50, we'll revisit it, or should we put it higher, or Nelson?
I sort of, this is a job description. Now, usually job descriptions are something that you put up when you're advertising for a
Right.
person. And usually in that, you don't have the salary, because the person comes in and applies, and then you make an offer. Well, here, why would you be stating, like Tim said, why would you even tell them what the range is?
All I can say is what we have done, and that all of our job descriptions have a range on them. The teachers have actually a grid, and
That's different.
that's different.
But even if it's a grid, when you run out for a math teacher, do you put out there, here's what we're gonna pay you when we run for the job?
Well, I think that's up to an
right.
HR person. You say starting salary, I mean, it depends, you don't have to, but a lot of places will say,
No, you do on the teachers, you do. The starting salary of a teacher is determined by their experience and their degrees.
right, but what I'm saying is if you're advertising, you can say on School Spring starting salary, or you could not. I mean, I'm not arguing one way or the other, it's just a preference that sometimes people do.
I would
When-
rather
when-
see something that says, salary will be based on experience, or,
Go ahead, Leanne.
When we started this job, it took 3 or 4 years for me to bring it to this board to get it proved. We said we wanted to not exceed a certain amount of money for this position. That's what we said we were gonna do. So we put a range in there and said that this is what we want to pay somebody in this position to be here. And so each year, or every other year, they come back to that, we change it.
Well,
But this is what we said we wanted to do. We wanted to add this position to the school, and we wanted to be able to support it in this range with dollars.
then I'll.
his blood
then I'll
pressure's
shut up.
going up.
But the thing that I keep coming back to is, yes, I agree you have a range. HR usually in most places will have positions, and they have ranges for every position.
Yeah, most places.
Most places. All right, and then at that, you have a job description that you run an ad for, and you say, based on experience, we'll pay you.
Well, and that's actually what this is, I would say. So if this guy came in here with very little experience and just out of college, we would probably be recommending, just like we do with other off contracts, if they come in at 0 years, they get the low end of the range. I mean,
So the question comes about, and we're gonna be faced with this more in the future. We have something that we said we gotta operate in the range. What happens when an individual hit that max?
Here we are.
Here we are, and we're gonna be faced with those things on the other boards in the central office area. What happens when they hit their cap? Individually, what are we gonna do? And so
We
we have to
revisit
start to decide whether we're going to say that this is good for 5 years, and then we're gonna revisit all of our job ranges and discuss them and change them or adjust them, like this chart has on here where somebody went through in 2005, 2008, and 2011 and looked at saying, let's make some changes out there. So the board has to make some decisions as to when are you going to adjust the maximum on a job description that we have saying that this is what we want to do along that line.
You're fine, Nelson, you're totally fine.
Would you
So,
not do that when you're doing the contracts? Would you not set the rates?
so, would somebody like to make a motion to change the range and to add, or designee after principal?
Right, we changed the range to 50,000.
I'm asking for a motion, so,
Okay, I'll make a motion then to change the range from where?
it's 30 to 45.
Okay, 30 to 50, and to change the wording for the responsibility designee.
Principal or designee, okay. Do you got that, Richard?
Could I get him to add on to that, if you don't mind, a year for review?
No.
No?
It'll come up just like it has now, we'll do it all over again.
So that
Doesn't fit the
actually
recipe.
only took 6 years. So it's Tim's pleasure, Tim Holbrook's pleasure. Do you want to change your motion, or are you just going to leave it?
Just leave it.
And Nelson, you seconded it?
Yes.
Okay. Is there other discussion?
Discussion. I don't think we ought to change the range. I think you ought to leave it the way it is. I didn't vote for this position back because the answer that was given to me, well, we didn't have one, and there was a school that came here and we're shocked because we didn't have one. And maybe some schools do have them. I know there are schools, a lot of schools that don't have it. I think this is just going to spiral out of control just like anything else does, so I'm not willing to, I will vote no on that.
So Fran, I just want to check in with Tim Brown, and what did I say before the meeting? That Fran didn't vote for it 6 years ago, and he probably wouldn't vote for it now.
I completely understand. I wouldn't want him to be wishy-washy.
I just see, I know what's going to happen, and that's.
But I invite you again to come by and see what he does, because he,
Yeah.
And you know what? It's fine, you know, we don't have to be unanimous in things. You have to stick to what you believe, and that's fine, but I expected that you would do that. And so I'm just wanted to reassure Tim that I know my board members. All in favor of this motion? Leon?
What?
Opposed?
1, 2.
3. Motion passes. 1, 2, 3, 4.
I couldn't get
5
my
to 3,
time
Richard?
limit on there. So,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 and 3, okay. Tim?
I just have something quick, 2 quick things to add. Part of the 16-page legislation piece is that schools have to provide a concussion management action plan. So I just wanted to let the board know that we are in the works right now, putting together a plan, getting other schools' ideas, and then we'll be presenting it to the policy committee to come before the board. So that is something we are in the process of working on right now. And lastly, I know most of you know that all coaches, the National Federation provides online courses that coaches are required by the Vermont Principals Association to complete. A coaching principles course, which is about a 7-8 hour course online, and then a sport first aid course. But I just want to let the board know that the National Federation is now offering some free online courses for our coaches. And one is the concussion course, which is required for all coaches to complete before they even start their first practice. And then it has to be renewed every 2 years. They also offer a free heat and dehydration course, which we require all of our fall coaches to take, especially with the summer month practices we have. And another course that we require all of our coaches to complete before the first day is a safe environment course, which is on hazing and bullying. So our coaches have been very receptive to this and have completed it. We have all our coaches on board. So I just want to let you know that it's a great program that the Federation is offering, and they're free. So that's really nice.
I have
Tim?
one more. Go ahead.
I mean, Leon?
I just wanted to make sure Tim realized that all officials, all certified officials are required to take the course online as well. And so when we don't have somebody that's certified, at least and enter into the school, they don't have that training.
That's good.
So it may be a gap there.
And my question was, this is volunteer coaches as well as the paid coaches?
Yes. Yeah. The concussion course.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Tim, for coming, and thank you for your report through Sue in the summer and our passes. And so just wanted to remind people that if you weren't here, if you weren't here, does Sue have, do you have?
I just have one left to give out.
Okay.
And he's not here tonight.
And okay. So, and there's lots of games going on, and
Yes,
lots of-
we have a boys soccer game at 4 on Friday, followed by, or I should say, we have a pep rally at 1:30 on Friday, followed by a
Favorite thing. My
boys soccer
favorite
game
day.
at 4, and then a football game at 7. So use your passes, come by, the kids would love to see you there.
thank you, Tim. Leon, did you have your hand
Well, I
up?
was just going to make sure I pointed out a gap that you may need to look at. And the gap that I said, all certified officials are required to take the course. If we have people working games that are not certified and are not coaches, we may have a gap, and Tim may want to take a look at that, that's all. And I think it might have went past everybody.
Thank you. Can I have a motion for the consent agenda, the new amended consent agenda? The nom forms went around. Richard, just want to make sure they got all the way to you. So, Nelson moved the consent agenda. Is
Second.
there a second? There's a second. Are there any questions on any of the items on the consent agenda?
Yeah.
Leon?
It's one item, the field trip to New Hampshire didn't get signed by the superintendent.
The one today, the
The
second
one to take place the 20th is on here and didn't get signed.
Okay.
So we want to get that back to somebody in
All
that
right,
office.
And you know what, it may be not the final copy too, but Donna will check. Yeah, check. I have a question on the literacy teacher. She's also on the SVSU as a resignation. So she's moving from somewhere in the SU to here?
The literacy teacher was formerly the ESL teacher, and so she is going to, we've nominated her for a position to be a literacy teacher. That's an MAU-funded position within the building. I'm not sure what the funding was for ESL.
Okay. Wendy? So-
I believe it was BSD.
But it was funded through the SVSU though, right? Yeah. Okay. So does this, Sue and Tim, are all of the positions that were vacant through the summer now
Mine are.
filled?
I have a paraprofessional position and a literacy position that we're working on still.
Okay. So, Ed?
All of these positions, nominations, they're funded positions in the budget?
Oh, yeah.
We're just replacing people that have.
Yes.
If my signature's not on it, it's not funded. If it's on it, it's funded.
You gotta check for 3 signatures, Ed. Or actually 3
Actually, it's an
initials.
I should say initials.
And how many signatures do you need on that? Just a few?
2.
2?
Technically,
I'm-
one is any coach. Just one.
Just one, okay.
So all in favor of the consent agenda? It's unanimous, thank you. Principals' reports.
I'm passing out a insert that was in the banner at the end of June, but I We haven't been like the whole board together, so I waited till tonight. And it is it's something that we're gonna try to do a few times a year. It is sponsored by Kathy Hoisington, which we really appreciate. And it is a Where Are They Now of students from MAU that, it goes back to, this particular one, back to 2001 to up to more recently. Some are in college, some are graduated from college. And they're doing a variety of things in their lives, and we asked them some specific questions about what they're doing. We asked them for a picture, and we asked them how MAU helped them get to where they are. So it's interesting reading, and it's interesting because I have now heard from several other students because it gets out on Facebook. So I have another folder started with about 8 students already that have said, I'd love to be part of this. So I think it's a nice thing to have in our newspaper a few times a year to see the good things that many of our graduates are doing. So that was wonderful. Yes.
So, do you ask them, questions such as, if you had to improve something at the school in terms of the education that we receive, what would you suggest?
I didn't for this because it was really like highlighting them. It wasn't a critique of us.
Okay.
As much as highlighting the good things they're doing and how they got there. And
Yeah,
I mean,
I
I
think it's
guess I
great.
could just ask, but
Yeah, I would be interested if there was, if you did it and you found that the
Yeah.
responses, there was a predominant number of,
yeah.
in one area, it might be
Yeah.
worth looking into.
So the only other couple things I wanted to let you know is we have a musical coming up. We just had the tryouts. It's November 7th, 8th, and 9th, and it is Urinetown that is going to be performed. And we have, not to be confused with You're in Town.
I got it.
But it's very, we talked ahead of time, both at the superintendent's office as well as, a letter went to you too, right?
Yes, it
It's
did.
very, it is a very appropriate play.
The directors of the show wanted to give me a heads up because of the title, and yes. But it's a play on words.
Yes. And then the other thing I wanted to let you know is that March 20th through 22nd, we've been chosen again and asked if we can have the New England Music Festival at Mount Anthony. And so we are going to have it there, and we will be, I'll say this many times, we are looking for families that will put some of these students that are from all over New England, wonderful kids. We're looking to have them put up the night of the 20th and 21st, but more will be coming out on that. It'll be advertised widely because we're going to need a lot of homes for these students to stay in.
Do you know what 2 nights that is? Because I don't have a new
I
calendar.
think it's March 20th and 21st.
Days of the week. Will it be the weekend? No.
Yes, it's
Or
over
is
the
it
weekend.
Thursday,
They come
Friday?
Thursday, Friday, and then the performance is Saturday.
Okay, we'll keep that in mind, everybody.
That's great. It'd be the same as it was before?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So,
One of the questions I asked Rick just before he left was, in your packet, you had as well as having the staff assignments, you had the numbers of students, and the question I asked him is that overall in the SU, it looks like we're down, but if you look at one of the District of North Bennington still has students, which are in our SU, so if we're really not down 121 kids, it's actually pretty much the same, if not up a few. So I think the enrollment at MAU is up a little bit. It is at the middle school and the high school. So overall, in the district, I think it is up a little bit. The numbers are deceiving in case you looked at the enrollment. Thank you, Sue. Tim?
Just a couple of things to inform the board. Tomorrow is open house at the middle school. We'll be hosting families for grades 6, 7, and 8. It's from 6:30 to 8:30. We do a very short introduction in the cafeteria, and then we have a schedule which allows families to move around the building and meet core teachers and unified teachers. The PTSA will be hosting dessert at the end of the evening, so I would absolutely invite the board to come out and join us and meet the families and the students. I want to thank Darlene Jones and the custodians. We hosted the quilt show over the weekend. It is quite the process. If you were here Friday afternoon as we moved 575 kids out the door, and then the quilters arrived, and you wouldn't know it Monday morning that the quilt show was here. They did a nice job cleaning up, and it looks very nice. And we are going to continue to look for partnerships in the community to host events here at the middle school. It's a nice building. It's a good venue. One of the things to look forward to is in March, when Woodford is hosting the United States Championships in snowshoe racing. Ooh. That banquet and award ceremony will be here at the middle school, and we are looking forward to hosting that group with us, so that'll be good. A couple of other things, initiatives that are underway in the middle school, there's lots of them, but two that I would like the board to be aware of. Advisory, we start every day with a 30-minute period. Teachers are connected with groups of students between 8 and 12 students. They meet every day for 30 minutes. It's a really good opportunity to build that relationship with kids. I have a group of teachers who've kind of taken it upon themselves to help provide more structure to advisory, talking about things like checking in on academics and building community, and they've just done some amazing things, and they're going to be reporting out to the faculty, and I would like to bring them before the board maybe in December or January once things get underway to kind of tell you their progress. The other group is a group, there's about 8 of us right now, called the Techademy. This is a group who, again, of teachers in the building who have signed up for the year to take online courses, to attend conferences, and then to do some presentations in front of the faculty in preparation for the next step in the one-to-one initiative. 4 or 5 years ago, the middle school provided a netbook for every student. Those netbooks are starting to reach the end of their life, and so we are exploring options. One of them would be the Chromebook, which some of you may have seen, and that's another group. We felt that we should do some exploration, and we should talk about how this would actually impact teaching before we buy the next shiny box. And so that would be another group that I would like to bring before the board in the months ahead at the pleasure of the chair, and just talk about our progress. And then last, Sue mentioned the music festival is coming to town. The music department here, Matt Edwards and Jay Sager, will be collaborating with the high school staff as the need for rehearsal space. So we'll actually be hosting some of those musicians here at the middle school on Thursday and Friday for rehearsals, and that's a really good opportunity for our kids to see some very, very high-achieving musicians in the building, and I think that will be a benefit to our music program. That's it.
Awesome. It is a beautiful space, and I like the checkerboard here. Any questions of Tim? Thank you.
Thank you.
Superintendent, Assistant Superintendent.
I just wanted to mention that we are moving forward with our school effectiveness, both the middle school staff together as teams and the high school staff worked on their school improvement planning last year in response to what the Department of Education has asked them to do. And we worked with our coach, Dr. Maura Hart. She was here and presented to you. We are applying to have her come back and help us. We are in the implementation phase of both of those plans, and we are looking forward to ways that we are going to work with the schools to develop further the goals that they have identified for improving their schools. So we are going to work on that together, and I think that at a future meeting we will bring forward the work that we are, what work is in progress. So.
Great. Any questions?
The group you brought in for the opening day, the 2 folks from the NEA, that had to be the most depressing presentation I've ever heard.
It was scary, wasn't it?
The good news was I talked to some teachers afterwards, and they said, one of them said, I guess I've been doing everything wrong, and others would say, I can't do that. it seemed to me the ideal teacher, in their opinion, would be an uncaring robot who had no connection to students.
So let's elaborate a little bit since we're on camera.
That's scary.
I didn't get that.
You-
Cheaper.
Are you talking about the social media?
I'm talking about the two folks from the NEA that basically said, don't pat anybody on the back. In fact,
Is this the don't friend anybody?
don't friend anybody.
on the social
I
media?
don't think you
Yeah.
can have a dress code, although I checked with Dave Barry,
Yeah,
and we
that's
still
not
have a
what it
dress code. But don't stand behind anybody, and look down, you know, it was,
And it was the NEA that presented it.
Who was speaking?
The Donna Watts and Wendy, who was the other one? Molly, do you remember?
He was
It doesn't make any difference, it wasn't any.
Anyway, it was Donna Watts, who's the attorney for the, okay, I know you know who. No, Donna
She's the
is though.
attorney.
Donna is.
He was our interim, what's the word for Norm, position.
Right, it was the UNISERV, the step in for Norm.
Was he the fellow who was here before?
No.
You okay?
No,
How's Norm doing?
he's good, he's back to work.
Good.
So,
so
Dave.
you didn't stay for the.
I didn't stay for the whole thing, because I think one of the things that was kind of interesting about it was that it wasn't very interactive, but it's hard to be interactive with 400 teachers and 200 paras in the blue seats. But it was more of a PowerPoint of do's and don'ts in terms of social media was really what I would
There were
say.
a lot of don'ts out there.
But the message came from what I would say union leadership, so it wasn't, I mean, so I think that was, take it from, they were presenting their view on it, not necessarily our view. And we do have policy on it, that I do know. So, Molly, did you have your hand up? Or
I was stretching my head. I think, as being a teacher sitting there, I think it just provided a warning for us, a reminder of we are face to the public, we're never off the job. So I didn't think it was a don't console students when they're sad, don't be there for them. It was more, be aware that if you have an open door policy and literally keep your door open so if somebody walks by, you're not alone one-on-one with a student in your room. Just those little reminders, but continue to be there for the students. I didn't take it as a, don't hug the kid, don't, stand behind them.
So for those of you who don't know, Molly is one of our high school science teachers, and this is the board. So the next item on the agenda is the chair's report, and I will go to the SU meeting, but I wanted to apologize to Dave Frederickson for not calling this meeting at the high school. So I believe on October 16th, which is our next MAU meeting, we're supposed to have the garden folks come. I think it will be harvest time and maybe past. Yeah. And so we will be here. And then Sue, if you could ask if on November 20th, we could use the upstairs in the library. And then on December 18th, we will be back here. So that is the fall. Ken had mentioned the October 7th meeting, and on October 30th, it's the 5th Wednesday in October. You are all invited to a board, I don't want to say training, I don't want to say retreat, but it's going to be a how things work. And it's, all boards are invited. It will be about, our hiring practices in the SU, what Act 153 means between the SU and the local districts. It'll be very informative on how things work within our SU and our districts. So if you have questions, certainly email me ahead of time. I'm going to start to plan the agenda. Rick will have a piece, personnel will have a piece, Steve Stitzel will review Act 153 and its relationship between how it works in the legislation a few years ago. And that was what was the consolidation piece was in that act as well. So that's all I have. And the SVSU meeting was last Thursday. It was a special meeting to review the search process and search firms. The board decided to go with a company called NASDAQ out of New England, primarily because they felt, and there's board members here, that their reach was a little further than the VSBA, just in Vermont. I believe the board is also looking at their lowest end of the search, which is to gather names in a short span of time from through their website, through their contacts. Right now, there's a superintendent conference happening in the Boston area. Do you know where it is? New Hampshire. And so they will do a bit of outreach and bring the names in. The proposal will come to the board next week on Wednesday. I did, as the chair, a motion was made and passed for the chair to write a letter to the secretary asking the state to waive the word superintendent and replace it with the chief, the highest ranking official. And that letter is with the Secretary of Education. The law actually states that it goes to the state board, but there's a couple different conflicting titles. The 2-page letter is posted on the September 25th portal for the board packet. It was also sent to all the board members. And if you're looking at it, Dave, it took me all weekend to compose it, to put in the different statutes. So the request is upstate. The board voted, Leon made the motion, not to stop the search process waiting for an answer. The state board did meet yesterday. It meets again in October, but the letter is in the secretary's hands. So, if board members would like to make a comment, they're welcome to. There's a few SU board members here, and Lori and Tara, you can make your public comments after the board has its say or not. I have had this many emails in response to the articles in the paper and countless phone calls. So I'm just keeping track of them. I'll share them with the SU board. And I did say in the article, although I guess I didn't realize I said it when I was speaking to the reporter, I did say that if the community feels strongly one way or the other, to let me know, and the board would consider it. And I will say I have never had this kind of response in my many years on the board. So I think people are passionate about it, at least the ones who've contacted me. I have had a majority in one direction and a few in the other direction. So, Dave?
Well, I don't get out and about much, but I got a lot of citizens told me they didn't think that was a very good idea.
Okay. So Ken and Fran and Leon are board members on the SU. So they can carry that back, or I'm sure they've heard things themselves.
I've also received several calls that they weren't too happy with going in a different direction other than education.
Tim?
I had the same thing. Very rarely do I get phone calls, but I must have had 5 or 6 for me. That's a lot of phone calls, and I certainly have heard about it at the post office.
So SU members, take note. Again, citizens who are watching, the letter that was written is on the website, and I will say that anybody's email address is their first initial and their last name at svsu.org, but unfortunately, Cat TV is scrolling all of our phone numbers. and I don't know how that happened, Dan, but.
had nothing to do with it.
If I had a preference, I'd rather have my email scrolling up there, but, Lori?
Hi, good evening. I too have received numerous comments and phone calls and emails, as well as the board members, on this subject. There is a great consensus that it would not be beneficial to our educational system to move in that direction. There's a very strong opinion on this. They feel that the advantages of this education background is immensely supportive of an educational system, even though there are aspects of business involved in running such a large educational system. The priority is to the benefit of the students and also to support the staff. And I think that you need to be aware that the community as a whole, from what all the responses I'm hearing, is not in favor of proceeding in this direction. And I wanted to bring that to the board's attention and share that with you. And we must keep in mind also that the role of the superintendent isn't just here in our community. It is also out in the legislature, I can't even say that word tonight, out at different state organizations. And they're in touch with a variety of different agencies. So it's not just here as, you know, and looking at the role here, it's all inclusive and very comprehensive. And I really feel that, along with many members of the community, that this would be not in the best interest in general, and also not towards what I read for the, what I understand to be the School Board Association's goals for the future, and the role of the superintendent plays in that area. One of the things that work together to ensure that every student has a personal learning plan focused on core academics, dispositions towards learning, and student aspirations. There's an emphasis on supporting personal learning needs of students and also in supporting professional development needs for the educators. So there's such, it's so advantageous to have that educational background that I just wanted to bring that to the board's attention, and I'm hoping that we move in a different direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Tara? Nelson?
I guess the board, as a board member, I can make my own statement, even though I've had several phone calls, but I've said the same thing. I think what we really need is someone to meet those needs that was just spoken. But we also need someone that has a very strong management skills, because it's got to become more cohesive from what we hear in the supervisory union and the people that work underneath, to make this really work smooth, because all of those parties that you talked about that play the role, you need a very, very strong leader that really understands. And so when you're doing this research as you're doing, I think we shouldn't rush into it, even though I know we need somebody right away. We really need to look at the background and understand that it's a very difficult position, and you need to be able to do several things at once, and one of them is manage the people under you.
Well said. Tara?
I'm concerned personally. There have been so many issues in the supervisory union, and I don't think going from a superintendent that we've had that has the experience we were looking for, and we still had issues in the supervisory union, to somebody without that experience is even remotely a good idea. And I know that I've been concerned about licensing issues of some staff members who work here currently, not in the school per se, just in the district. And a superintendent is supposed to be putting their license on the line for a provisional license that they give to somebody else, and somebody without that educational license wouldn't have the ability to put their license on the line for a provisional license. So I don't even know how you'd get around that when a good number of the people we employ here are on provisional licensing. And a shocking number don't even have any licenses, so that's been a concern I've had recently.
Well, Tara, I don't know the numbers, so I mean, the word shockingly many sounds to me like a lot out of 400 teachers, so I would hope we could come back with that actual number. I know that a lot of teachers come from other states, so they need provisional licenses. They have a certain window that they have to get their endorsements or their licensing. So I mean that, I'm not disagreeing with you that there may be some that don't have them, and you're right, the superintendent is responsible for every employee in the district ultimately. But I worry when you say adjectives like that in that number.
I'm concerned, people I know that I've called about, more than half that I've called about didn't have licensing in
So
place.
I guess, as a board member, I guess I would like to have that from personnel, Donna, at the next meeting. Just numbers, not names of how that is, because we have to have a certain number of teachers. We get rated on highly qualified. I'm sure you're aware of that. So, it is the beginning of the school year. That does happen. If people aren't hired in, with a couple months of lead time, the state licensing department gets backed up. So, but I think we should follow up on that. But continue, I'm sorry, I cut you off.
Well, that's basically my point, and I was planning on bringing this to, I didn't even know that the MAU would be the appropriate place to bring.
Well,
it
it's
up.
not necessarily appropriate or not appropriate, it was just a report, and if you're here, you're welcome to speak on it. You can certainly speak at SVSU as well. Some of us are SU members, but not all of us.
Right, okay. So I just think it's a terrible idea.
Okay.
That's right.
Thank you. Anybody else? And all of you, thank you for coming. Molly and Wendy, thank you. Wendy, for those of you who don't know, worked in the high school. She has now stepped up to help with special ed. I'm going to fight really hard to get her some help, and we'll bring that up at the SU level on a week from today. We need an executive session, and I think it'll be short, so we can come back if you want to just wait, Mike. And Ken, you have another?
Just a reminder, the VSBA conference at Lake Morley, October 24th and 25th. If you're interested, contact Mary Lee at central office for the information.
And Diane Ravitch is speaking on the 23rd. So,
So was there any fee for us?
excuse me?
Was there a fee for us?
No. It is, so can we have a motion for executive session for contract and legal?
So moved.
Second.
I'm leaving my things here. All in favor? It's unanimous. We're going to go right down to the conference room and come back.
All in favor of leaving our...
Good evening again. This is the continuation of the MAU meeting at 8:30, and I'd like, if anyone interested in taking a motion on the ESP contract that was negotiated last spring into summer. Fran?
Yeah, I'll move that we accept the ESP contract.
I'll second it then.
And that was seconded by Leon. So, all in are there any discussion? Do you need some, we're ratifying the ESP contract.
Do you need some voters here?
All in favor?
Hello, voters.
Nelson? Ed, are you voting in favor of the ESP contract?
Yes.
Okay, so
Unanimous. Raise your hand now.
Raise your hand if you're
There you
voting
go.
in favor.
It's unanimous.
All in favor?
That's all. There you go. Unanimous, yeah.
can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Thank you. Mike, are we going to see you again?
No.
Voters,
Give us a round of applause for Mike Cutler. Thank you for your service.
Boulder's gone. It's washed down the hill. You're done.
He's out there.
Yeah, that's right.
John Marie, the other depressing thing about that meeting was